The Middle East, a land of ancient history, vibrant cultures, and seemingly perpetual conflict. As we stand on the precipice of 2025, the region feels like a powder keg, its fuse burning ever shorter. The old wounds of history fester, new tensions erupt with alarming regularity. The world watches with bated breath, wondering if this is the year the Middle East finally explodes. The warning signs are impossible to ignore. The Syrian civil war, though abated, has left a vacuum, a breeding ground for extremism and instability. Lebanon, long a fragile tapestry of sects and ideologies, teeters on the brink of collapse. Iraq, still struggling to rebuild after decades of war and sanctions, remains vulnerable to sectarian violence and foreign interference. Add to this volatile mix the escalating rivalry between Iran and Saudi Arabia. This is not just a clash of nations, but a battle for the soul of Islam, a struggle for regional dominance that threatens to drag the entire Middle East into a maelstrom of violence. From the battlefields of Syria to the streets of Yemen, their proxies wage war, fueled by money, weapons, and religious fervor. The stakes could not be higher. The stability of the global economy, the fight against terrorism, the fate of millions caught in the crossfire, all hang in the balance. The year 2025 may well be a turning point for the Middle East, a year that determines whether the region descends further into chaos or finds a path towards a more hopeful future. At the heart of the Middle East's current turmoil lies a dangerous rivalry, the shadow war between Iran and Saudi Arabia. It is a conflict fought not on traditional battlefields, but through proxies, fueled by religious animosity and a thirst for regional hegemony. Iran, emboldened by its nuclear ambitions and its network of militant allies, seeks to expand its influence across the region. From Hezbollah in Lebanon to the Houthis in Yemen, Iran's tentacles extend far and wide, challenging the established order and alarming its neighbors. Saudi Arabia, the birthplace of Islam and custodian of its holiest sites, views Iran's rise with growing alarm. The Saudis, with their vast oil wealth and close ties to the West, have long been the dominant power in the Gulf, but they see their position threatened by Iran's growing assertiveness and its support for Shia groups across the region. This rivalry has fueled conflicts across the Middle East. In Syria, Iranian-backed militias have played a key role in propping up the Assad regime, while Saudi Arabia has supported rebel groups fighting against him. In Yemen, the Houthis, armed and funded by Iran, have been locked in a brutal civil war with the Saudi-backed government. The danger is that this shadow war could easily escalate into a direct conflict between Iran and Saudi Arabia. A miscalculation, a provocation, or a simple accident could spark a confrontation that would have devastating consequences for the entire region and beyond. Caught in the crossfire of this regional power struggle is Israel, a nation perpetually on edge, facing an existential threat from multiple fronts. Already grappling with the Palestinian issue and the ever-present threat of terrorism, Israel now finds itself surrounded by Iranian proxies, each armed to the teeth and spoiling for a fight. To the north, Hezbollah, Iran's most potent proxy, has amassed an arsenal of rockets and missiles capable of striking deep inside Israeli territory. In recent years, Hezbollah has grown bolder, emboldened by its successes in Syria and its close ties to Iran. To the south, in Gaza, Hamas, another Iranian-backed group, continues to pose a serious security threat to Israel. Though weakened by years of conflict and blockade, Hamas remains committed to Israel's destruction, and its ability to launch rockets and infiltrate terrorists across the border should not be underestimated. Israel's dilemma is stark. It cannot afford to ignore the growing threat from Iran and its proxies, but any preemptive strike against them risks triggering a wider regional conflict. Israel's leaders are caught between a rock and a hard place, forced to walk a tightrope between deterrence and restraint, hoping against hope to avoid a conflagration that no one wants but that everyone fears is inevitable. Section 4. The nuclear threat, a global nightmare. Looming over all of this is the specter of a nuclear-armed Iran, a nightmare scenario that keeps world leaders up at night. Iran's nuclear program, though ostensibly for peaceful purposes, has long been a source of suspicion and concern for the international community. Despite years of sanctions and diplomatic efforts, Iran has continued to enrich uranium, moving closer and closer to the point where it could produce a nuclear weapon. The 2015 nuclear deal, which offered Iran sanctions relief in exchange for limits on its nuclear program, has unraveled, leaving the world on the brink of a dangerous new nuclear arms race. The possibility of Iran acquiring nuclear weapons has sent shockwaves through the region. Saudi Arabia has vowed to develop its own nuclear program if Iran does, raising the specter of a nuclear arms race in the Middle East. Israel, which considers a nuclear-armed Iran an existential threat, has repeatedly threatened to take military action to prevent Iran from acquiring the bomb. The consequences of such a conflict would be catastrophic. A war with Iran would likely draw in the United States and its allies, setting the stage for a wider regional conflagration that could have global implications. The global economy, already fragile, would be plunged into chaos. The risk of terrorism would skyrocket, and the already volatile Middle East would be plunged into a new dark age. Section 5. Shifting sands. Russia and China make their move. Adding further fuel to the fire are the geopolitical ambitions of Russia and China, both of whom see an opportunity to expand their influence in the region as the United States' role wanes. Russia, eager to reassert itself as a global power, has been steadily increasing its military presence in Syria, using its air power to prop up the Assad regime and establish a foothold in the eastern Mediterranean. China, with its insatiable appetite for energy and its ambitious Belt and Road Initiative, has been forging closer ties with Iran and other countries in the region, seeking to secure access to vital resources and expand its economic and political influence. The involvement of these external actors adds a new layer of complexity to an already volatile situation. Russia and China's interests often clash with those of the United States and its allies, creating a dangerous dynamic that increases the risk of miscalculation and escalation. The Middle East is becoming a geopolitical chessboard, with global powers vying for influence and control. As the United States steps back, others are stepping in, creating a more fluid and unpredictable regional order, one where the old rules no longer apply, and the potential for conflict is ever present.